passed. Yeah.
Call the meeting, the Board of Education regular meeting. It's Monday, September 12th at 7 p.m. The Board of Education makes available at least one current copy of the Open Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room and accessible to members of the public. Would you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first order of business today is the oath of office of our new student member, Riley Schwiezow.
Welcome. Okay, so what we will do is we will have you raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Riley Schwiezow,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation
that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation
or for purpose of evasion,
or for purpose of evasion,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties
of the office of the School Board of School District Number 15 of Beatrice, Nebraska,
of the office of the School Board of School District Number 15 of Beatrice, Nebraska,
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and to the best of my ability.
I do further swear that I do not advocate,
I do further swear that I do not advocate,
nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates for the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or violence,
nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence,
and that during such time as I am in this position,
and that during such time that I am in this position,
I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization
I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization
that advocates for the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence.
that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Congratulations and welcome, Riley. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the consent agenda as presented, including approval of minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting on August 8, 2022, approval of the proposed accounts for payment, approval of budgetary receipts and expenditures for August 2022, approval of Committee of the Whole minutes for August 25, 2022, approval of option students, approval of minutes of the board retreat and legal update on August 25th, 2022, and excuse the absence of Aaron Chadwick.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Jason, do you have a treasurer's report?
Yes, so August, bills were it was a hefty month for bills. We paid off a lot of things and prepaid some things going into the new school year to have a fresh jump start on our budget authority. So bills for the month were $1,519,820.94. Payroll was $1,442,995.59. That brought total bills to $2,962,816.53. Another lean revenue month. We know that every August is a lean revenue month because we're at the end of the budget cycle and we have no state aid. So it was a lean revenue month, but the end of the budget cycle included A few statistics that I'd like to share with you. We did make a transfer to the depreciation fund. The interesting thing about those expenditures that I mentioned before does include those transfers. You have to show those as an expenditure, even though it's still money that you have in your general fund operation. You're just transferring into the depreciation fund to use later. And we did make a hefty transfer that covered all of our expenditures out of the depreciation fund from this year, so we can use all those in next year or future years if we so choose. We also made a transfer to the employee benefit fund, and that was simply after the Emperor's audit. We have some things we're working out with the Department of Department of Retirement, and we anticipate that it'll be a wash, but just in case it's not, we need to be able to pay off any claims in there. And then we just, workman's comp, we had a couple claims this past year that we had to pay on, so we want to make sure that we replenish the employee benefit fund as well. We also made transfers to the middle school and high school activities fund. Some of the bigger bills that we paid off at the end of the budget cycle, water and sewer was $28,483. We paid off architectural services for the new building at $458,000. Our property insurance went up 35%, about $21,000 I think it was, and that was $161,811 going into the next year. So that was a big change. Kidwell cabling for the new school was a $91,633 bill. The interesting thing about that bill is it's all E-rate funded, so 80% of it comes back to us once we have spent that money. And we paid that ahead of time with the help of Ryan McDowell from ESU 5 in preparation for the building. So that's an expense that we do not have to include in our gross maximum price on the building. Our ALICAP workman's compensation was $111,110. And then finally, Johnson Control Services, we have an agreement with them that updates a few of the things out at the high school and the middle school for $28,560 that we paid for at a time too. So that work will be coming, it just is not done yet. So in short, the bottom line is we paid off some big bills, which helps give us a jump start into the next budget cycle, but we still underspent our budget for the year, and the financial picture finished out fairly good. We do have the audit scheduled. I think it's the end of September or the 1st of October, but it's right in one of those first 2 weeks, so that will be coming our way shortly.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Any questions? Can I have your votes, please, on the consent agenda? All right, motion passes. Next up is Outstanding Recognition, Employee of the Month, Dr. Nielsen.
Okay, I am going to turn over the Employee of the Month to Mrs. Ruffalo. And I know that Mrs. Corringer-Hipstra would also second, third, all of the words that are being said tonight too, because our Employee of the Month works closely with our Special Education Department. So, welcome.
I have to tell you, every time I have an Employee of the Month, I have to tell a little white lie to get them to come. Casey, I just sent her a text that I like to have you at the board meeting tonight. So she did not know why she said. So, Mrs. Casey Zarvanicki is a September Employee of the Month. Casey's role in our district is not only represented at Paddock Lane, but through the entire district and community of Beatrice. Casey is an idea generator, a cheerleader, and a project manager. She excels in her position by coming up with creative ways to improve the communication and listening skills of her students. Casey is also an outstanding out-of-the-box thinker when it comes to teamwork. She works with so many different teachers and parents with ease. Casey completes projects before others can even begin to think of how we might start them, and that is really the truth. Sometimes she's like 6 days ahead of the rest of us. She serves as a faculty representative on the PTO board and as the Paddock Lane Social Committee chair. She is instrumental in coming up with fun activities to boost the morale of everyone in the building. If Casey has an idea, she has a cohort and others supporting it. As we all know, it will be amazing, even 6 weeks in advance of when we're going to do it. At the district level, she is a PLC leader. Casey effortlessly engages her co-workers across the district to ensure everyone is on the same page. Casey is currently spreading the excitement for the new elementary school. As stated before, if Casey believes it, she will spread that positivity and belief to others effortlessly. Casey is not only an advocate for students, but a strong supporter of our community. Casey ensures that new and innovative ideas are supported so as to continue to build on our community. Casey believes strong schools build strong communities, and strong communities build strong schools. Casey is well liked and respected by students, family, and colleagues. Students love her because she is kind, loving, fun, and cares about them. She also hands out a lot of treats and stickers and pencils and all sorts of other little things if you can pronounce your letters the way you're supposed to and your sounds the way you're supposed to, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you do. Your budget must be terrible, Mrs. Hoekstra. Casey is able to see exactly what each child's unique strengths and needs are. Casey helps the students overcome their struggles and develops a positive self-concept. I have to say my grandson goes to speech and he just thinks speech is the greatest thing and he should go forever. There's no reason to graduate out of speech. She told me that the other day. I'm never graduating, Grandma. We are so grateful to work with such a great advocate, cheerleader, and innovator. Beatrice Public Schools is lucky to have Casey as a member of our school family, and our community is indeed fortunate to have her as a resident. We'd like to congratulate you, Casey, on September Employee of the Month. Thank you. Say something.
Can we get a sticker?
Picture with
Do you have stickers for us?
Well, if
I just got some of the budget.
Okay, I can still do that. Okay. Perfect. Get it?
All right, congratulations, Casey. Next up is our business friend of the month, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so tonight our business friend of the month could not be present, but we surveyed our principals across the district and we came across the idea that we wanted to recognize Nicole Walker, who is with Coca-Cola, as our August business friend of the month. In the past 4 years, Coca-Cola has donated over $15,000 back to our school to be used by principals to help fundraise, to help fund activities, including field trips, activity t-shirts, and various other material objects for students. In 2017, Coca-Cola donated $1,725 to Beatrice Public Schools. At Beatrice High School, Coca-Cola has been a generous donor of water and other drink items when administration needs water for senior lunch, freshman first day, scholastic honors night, or homecoming festivities with our students. Nicole and Coca-Cola are always willing to assist and make those events a positive experience for all involved. Also used at BHS are water coolers, ice chests, and soft side coolers, which are available through Nicole and Coca-Cola as an aspect of the agreement that our district has made with this company. These items are used whenever athletic or activity teams are competing on or off campus. Nicole Walker and Coca-Cola are always a great initial contact for our administrative requests. Nicole helps us make contact with sales representatives and delivery staff for a timely delivery of products when we're in a pinch. We want to thank Nicole Walker and Coca-Cola for their continued support of Beatrice High School and the Beatrice Public School District. So thanks to Coca-Cola and Nicole. She could not be here tonight, but we appreciate their support of our students and staff.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see that one.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the information portion of the meeting. And first up, student update with Riley. Put you on the spot right away.
Okay, I'll start with preschool and work my way up. The preschool has been working hard on learning rules, routines, and procedures. Missy Turman says that the progress has been so much fun to watch. A couple Fridays ago, they had their first family event, which was a tailgate at the House of Orange. Students had walking tacos, participated in fun activities, got to listen to the band, and went to the football game. And then at Lincoln and Stoddard Elementary, Principal Jansen says that they are both off to a great start. The bookworm at Lincoln is up and running, and punch cards are getting filled up at both schools to earn rewards for showing the Orangeman Way. At Paddock Lane, students just spun the wheel for their house assignments and were welcomed into their house family. The staff at Paddock has been busy making plans for all future house activities. At the middle school, all the students have successfully been sorted into their houses, and their year-long competition has begun. Middle school sports are underway. Football beat Auburn in their first game. Cross-country boys have won both of their first meets, and several girls have placed individually. Volleyball lost to Auburn last week in a tough 3-set match. And for the high school, the fall musical is coming up. It's Little Shop of Horrors, and it will premiere September 24th, 25th, and 26th. And Key Club is hosting a blood drive Friday, September 30th at the high school. And homecoming's coming up. It's September 30th, and the football team plays Norris. Leadership and student council groups are helping put that and Spirit Week together, along with the coronation after the game. And parent-teacher conferences are coming up September 19th and 22nd, which means no school September 23rd. And all of the fall sports are off to a great start, and the teams are playing really well.
All right, thank you, Riley. Great job on your first board meeting. Appreciate that. Next up, board reports, committee of the whole, Mrs. Martin.
Well, prior to the committee of the whole meeting, we heard a presentation on the impact of recent Supreme Court decisions on schools, and I personally thought it was really interesting and informative and information that we needed. The committee of the whole meeting was held after that at 6 on August 25th. I'm just going to read, we're going to hear about most of these later in the meeting, but Mr. Alexander gave us information about procedure for complaints of sexual harassment, talked about internal controls, the procedures for bidding construction projects, drug and substance use and abuse by personnel, changes in substitute teachers, special education changes, agenda construction and control. And he also informed the board that changes to LB 83 now require the public addressing the board to identify themselves, including their name and their address and name of the organization they were representing. And there were some additional changes for the posting of meeting minutes. He also gave us a handout on the requirements of LB 644. He also talked about the upcoming groundbreaking ceremony and that NDA has granted our request to lift the 90-day limit for substitute teachers. That ends my report.
Thank you, Doris. Do we have a stance report, Jason?
The only stance report really is that the first meeting is this Thursday, so we will be meeting via Zoom on Thursday, and then I will be attending the Nebraska Education Coalition meeting at noon at the NCSIA office in Lincoln, so I'll be on both of those committees this year.
Okay, thank you. Now's the time for public forum citizens' requests for comments. We did not receive, Dr. Nielsen, did you receive no requests for comments tonight? So we will move on to the discussion portion. First reading of policies, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so as Doris mentioned, the policies were covered in the committee of the whole meeting pretty much in depth. I'm just going to quickly brief over them as a quick reminder. Policy 1220, dealing with Title IX, just had some cleanup language and provided clarity to the formal rules and procedures of Title IX. We also had a bit of information passed along to us from Bobby Truey in regards to the actual Title IX rules and regulations. So roles in that Title IX policy are coordinator, investigator, decision maker, and then the appeals coordinator. So we will rescind policy 1211 and then adopt the new revised policy 1220. Policy 3132, internal controls, just basically established and identified requirements by the NDE to monitor the use of ESSER funds. 3540 just changed the amounts required for bidding to take place when projects reach a certain expenditure capacity. Policy 4009, drug and substance abuse. Just a reminder that employees will abide by the drug-free workplace policy and if they are charged with any criminal drug statute conviction for a violation occurring in the workplace, they must notify the superintendent in writing within 5 calendar days of such conviction. Policy 4133, substitute teachers, just basic changes giving superintendent or superintendent designee the authority to execute any necessary documents to assist a substitute teacher to secure a local substitute teacher permit through the Nebraska Department of Education. Policy 6600, just many updates to the special education policies that needed to be made to meet new state, federal, and NDE guidance. 8340 was an agenda construction and control change as a result of LB 83. And just again, as Doris said, anyone wishing to address the board needs to supply their important information, their name and organization and so forth. And then policy 8346, very similar information along the lines of LB 83. And then finally, policy 9340, just also as a result of LB 83 were changes to the requirements of the meetings and the meeting minutes, that those minutes must be posted on the website within 10 days after the meeting and kept up for 6 months. So all of those policies are attached in your Spark documents, and you can review them as needed, and of course ask questions at any time if needed as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I know that was very quick, but
Next up, superintendent evaluation process, and that is me discussing that. So as of last year, or I guess as of one of the jobs of the board is we are to evaluate the superintendent on a yearly basis. The past couple of years, we've utilized the Nebraska Association of School Boards evaluation tool. I guess I feel like we should continue utilizing that process unless anybody has a question or an issue with that. We have been in contact with Katie Coble with the Nebraska Association of School Boards, and the process this year, at least tentative timeline, is that October 4th through October 10th, Mr. Alexander will complete his self-evaluation, and then starting on October 12th, that will be sent to the board, and then October 12th through the 21st, us as board members will complete that evaluation. Again, it will be an online tool that we can complete with the goal then to have the final report and be able to present to the board at the November board meeting. So that way we can kind of keep on track of where we're moving along that process. One of the things that personally that I would like to see, and I've talked to Mr. Alexander about, is within this evaluation process is to look at himself setting 3 to 5 goals that we can track, and he can present to us on the progress of those goals throughout the year, whether that be monthly or quarterly or something along those lines. Just so we have something else aside from the evaluation process itself that we can be evaluating him on during that process. Any questions, concerns, comments? Okay. All right. Next up, 2022-2023 budget preview. Mr. Alexander.
the moment that Doris has been waiting for sitting on pins and needles for this moment.
I've reviewed it the entire weekend.
No, there you go. So typically at the September board meeting, we would be approving the budget at this point. We would have done all of this in August or before tonight. However, because of LB 644, everything's pushed back a month, which is why we are where we are right now. So tonight is geared primarily just to give you a quick overview of where the budget will be proposed to be and how it affects the tax levy, and give you an idea of where we will be at as we approach the LB 644 joint public hearing that will be September 26th at the courthouse. And then on September 29th, prior to our committee of the whole meeting, we will have our budget hearing and approve the final approval of the tax levy and all those things associated with the budget that night. So objectives for the budget hearing are up there. First of all, explain the goals for the proposed 22-23 budget, quick review of BPS historical financial background, discuss factors of budget proposal, talk about the expenditure and receipt sides of the 22 and 23 budget, talk about the proposed 22-23 tax levy, and then required 22-23 budget resolution that will come in September as well. So those will all be part of this, and we'll try and go through fairly quickly. some goals that have been set. First of all, in regards to the budget cycle, financing an educational program that supports the best interest of the students attending Beatrice Public Schools. That will always be the first and foremost important goal in the budget cycle, is looking at how can we utilize the budget to support the students. Adjusting the general fund and building fund to accommodate future building needs, and that I think has to be a goal given the project that's at the forefront of our budget cycle coming up. Budgeting appropriately for building project, short-term and long-term, so we have to look at the actual construction event, which is a 2-year short time process, and then the long-term of how to pay that off, and we'll be talking about that in coming meetings as well. And number 4, maintain appropriate revenue stream in light of the projected state aid and revenue loss. This is an important concept to grasp. I touch on this every year, so I'm not going to say a lot about it right now, but it's important to understand why we need to keep that revenue stream up. And then finally, recognition of the continued tax burden on property owners. And I think we try to explain that as best we can when we look at some of the historical factors related to the budget and how Beatrice Public Schools has managed that in the past. First, enrollment history. You can see that our enrollment history, clear back to the year 2001, 2002, is fairly static in regards to the fact that it has not changed a lot. You'll notice 22, 23 is not up there. That's because we take that number that goes on this graph from October 1st of every year. That's when that number becomes fixated on that graph. So we don't have 22, 23 up there, but I can tell you that our enrollment went up. So we will be, that does go on there, assuming all the students that we enrolled on September 1st and showed enrollment will be up by about 65 students or more. So we had a couple more register today. So we anticipate that number will be up somewhere between 60 to 70 students as we get ready to update it, and we'll do so on October 1st. The Tax Equity Education Opportunity Support Act, or TEOSA, is what determines the funding of schools in the state of Nebraska, and typically it comes with a lot of complexities intertwined, but the basics of the TEOSA formula is that needs minus resources equals your state aid. And if you have great needs and very few or not as many resources as some other districts, then you are an equalized district and you get state aid. However, if you have needs but your resources are plentiful, which means your valuations, then there's a chance you're an unequalized district and you don't receive state aid. So that's how that formula balances itself out. As you can see, there's lots of little ideations underneath each part of that, the needs and the resources, and all those things factor in to determine what your state aid is. And when we look at Beatrice Public Schools history, which is the next slide, we will see that the high point of state aid for Beatrice Public Schools was 2010-11 before legislative change took place. And in 2010-11, the legislature figured out that if they use valuations as part of the formula, then they can lower the contribution that they make to schools in the state of Nebraska, which is exactly what's happened. And as you look at this graph, you will notice that state aid dropped significantly as values started to go up between 2010-11 and then 2019-20 was kind of the low point. We've come up a little bit more in the past couple of years because our valuations have not increased so much. However, you can start to see as you get out to 22-23 that we see that dip a little bit. There's two key factors involved in why our state aid has gone down. One is in student enrollment. We have decreased a little bit over the past couple of years, not significantly, but the major portion of why our state aid has gone down is because our valuations have gone up. And when you see the next slide, you will see that our valuations took a pretty large jump this year of almost 7%, which is the highest it's been in several years. So we anticipate that will have an effect on our state aid going into next year. The thing that will salvage that, though, of course, is that our enrollment did go up a little bit. So that will help us. The next slide shows our valuation certified on August 21st by the county assessor is $1,384,439,720. So this is up about 7%, which the next slide will give you a better indication. And I think this slide is very important to spend a little extra time on. you can see that the 21-22 state aid number was 1,200,000,000, I need to look at it here on my computer, 298,995, $298,995,241. And this year, it went up $85,444,479 to $1,384,439,720, which is a 6.17% increase. The graph below that is even more important, because what we have seen traditionally in the past several years is that agriculture has taken the biggest hit in terms of valuation increases. But in the past particular 2 years, that's not necessarily been the case as much as what we have seen the residential increases happen. So on this particular graph, it's a little hard to see up there, but the urban valuation increase makes up about 53% now of the overall property taxes that are collected. Agriculture makes up about, I think it's 38%. Centrally assessed is a little less, and then the personal property tax is less than that. So in essence, our residential owners in the last couple of years have caught up and surpassed the agricultural components of how we figure out the valuation breakout.
Is the 53% residential and commercial?
It is.
Thank you.
Yep. So how does that all factor into the budget itself? When we talk about the budget, there's two sides of the budget. There's the expenditure side and the revenue side, and they have to balance. And so when we use the lid computation factor that is provided by the Department of Education, the LC2 sheet, our budget is basically certified. We can spend $26,166,306. We have access to prior year unused authority, which you can see at $510,562. So that brings that number up to $26,676.76, $868. And our total allowable budget authority of general fund expenditures, including the $3,975,000 we budgeted for SPED, brings our total budget of expenditures to $30,651,868. So that's the total amount that we could spend if we wanted to. Typically, we don't spend up to that amount. That's a 3.5% growth as certified by the Department of Education, and that brings our total general fund of operating expenditures to that number right there. Then what we have to talk about is we compare that to last year. That's a $161,215 decrease from last year to this year. When we get to the revenue side, again, remember, we just looked at what we can spend. Now we have to look at where does the revenue come from to pay for what we're going to spend. And so that breaks out like this. The beginning cash balance for the district was estimated at $7,034,821. Other revenues, these are state and federal revenues, are estimated at $5,767,599. The only one of these revenues that's guaranteed to us is the state aid, and it's certified at $5,449,448. So that brings us total revenues before taxes to $18,251,868. Now that's important to understand because that tells us the number that we have to support our expenditures before we include taxes. And we have to get to that 30 million number that you saw before. So our property taxes become $12,400,000. That gets us to $30,651,868. So they balance then. Our revenue supports our anticipated expenditures. So that's how the budget in a nutshell works. Now there's many more details that go into it that it gets broken out to, and when it's handed over to, approved by you hopefully, and handed over to Jackie Bornmeyer, then we attach a lot of codes to that, but that's a basic overview of the budget. Any questions? Okay, so on the tax side of things, when we start talking about taxes, this is just the basic history of the general fund tax levy history of Beatrice Public Schools. And you can see that, again, the further left you go in history, there was a time period when there were not quite as many restrictions on the tax levy as there is now. And over the course of history, the legislature has ratcheted down what the levy of schools could be to where it is currently, and that's $1.05. So currently, in your general fund, you cannot tax above $1.05 per $100 valuation. The tax rate history, this is just more information for you that we don't need to spend a lot of time on. The historical revenues and expenditures. This graph is important because the green line shows what the revenues are and the red line shows what the expenditures are. And you can see that traditionally in history, Beatrice Public Schools has been very frugal from the standpoint of not spending more money than what they bring in. And when we talk about the per pupil cost, that will be very reflective of how we do that. So these numbers just reflect the next graph. When we get to that graph, go ahead, Jackie, you can see the per pupil cost, and the blue line represents Beatrice average daily membership per pupil cost going all the way back to 2000, 2001 or 2, I think. And basically, the red line shows the average state average daily membership cost, so per pupil. So when you break it down to what it costs per pupil at Beatrice Public Schools and per pupil to the rest of the state, we have remained under that state cost for a very long time. And that's something that shows a great deal of frugal ability on the board's part, and a great deal of amount of respect for the property owners that we talk about at the beginning when we talk about being conscientious of the property owners and the tax burden on them. This represents the fact that you are conscientious about that. So, in the coming year, the special hearing notice will go out shortly to everybody in terms of the county. Everybody in the county will get this for purposes of the special joint hearing due to LB 644. We post this every year anyway, so people understand it. But our property tax request will be set, I'm proposing or recommending to you as a board that the property tax be set at $12,590,909. That's in the general fund alone. That's a levy of just over 90 cents, so it's 90, if you round it up, it's 91 cents. You can see that to the right. It's 0.909459, so that's 91 cents dedicated specifically to the general fund, which means it will generate $12,590,909 in that general fund. The next set of numbers down below that represents the building fund. The building fund is capped at 14 cents. So you can see that with the project that we have in the elementary school, we have taken it all the way up to that 14 cents. We're right at 13.9 cents, which will generate $1,937,466. That's a very important number for us because going into the building project, we need $1.6 million to pay off that loan for the next 40 years. So that number shows us that we are going to be able to access a little bit over that to be able to pay off that loan. But it's important to keep that little bit in the building fund to take care of the rest of the buildings in the district, the middle school and the high school as need be. And then finally, the last set of numbers that you see arrows pointing to down at the bottom is the Quality Capital Purpose Undertaking Fund, or QCPUF is what we call it. We are asking for $393,939 in there. It's at 2.8 cents. The highest you can go for that fund for QCPUF is 3 cents. So we're taking that up to where we'll be collecting enough to be able to. That's also that was a lighting and roofing project done in 2009-10 that we are paying off on until 2033. So we have to collect that amount of money in it to be able to pay it off in the year 2033 as it comes up. So that shows you how the tax hearing notice will look when we break that down a little bit and compare it to next year on the next slide, or excuse me, last year. You can see that in all reality, the tax levy does not change that much from where it was a year ago. With the exception, our general fund, we levied 94 cents, and our building fund, we levied 10.6 cents, and our QC Puff fund, we levied 2.6 cents. This year in the general fund, we adjust that a little bit, down to 90 cents. Our building fund is at 13.9, or right at 14 cents, and our QC Puff at 2.8 cents. So all total, the levy last year was 1.0760, maybe 241 or 741, I can't see that. Thank you. And this year it's 1.077860. So a change that results in 1/100th of a cent in tax levy, a little more than that. So not a very big change in all reality. And when we look at the general fund tax request, I think it's just important to point out, we will be going to a joint public hearing where we have to present all this information, and it's important to note that we collect 1% to go to pay the county treasurer costs at the county level. So when you take that out, it does reflect a little bit on what we actually get to bring in. And in the general fund this year, that relates to $125,909 off of the $12,590,000 that we collect. So really, we only collect $12,465,000 in our fund. And I just think that's important for the public to know that we actually are the responsible entity for collecting the taxes that pay for the county to pay their services as well. The general fund, as you see it up there, in comparison, last year we collected or taxed for $12,135,343. This year, with the valuation increases and the levy remaining essentially the same or lower in the general fund, we're at $12,590,909. So that's a change of $455,566. In the special building fund, we will be increasing from $1,381,413 to $1,918,091. So that's an increase of $536,678, which is all basically just a result of shifting a little bit out of the general fund into the building fund and accessing the full potential of the valuation of the 6.17% increase in valuations. So that's how that all plays into effect. This next slide just talks a little bit about the tax collection history and how over the course of the years, when you certify taxes, most of the time the amount collected is pretty close to the amount you certify, but sometimes it takes a while for that to come in. So that's all. We also have to factor that in to when we set the tax asking. Last year, at the close of the year, 21-22, we were right at about 92.14% of the taxes have come in as collected. There could still be some sitting in the county treasurer's office that just have not been deposited or been paid out yet. So that's that. That's a very quick overview. I hope it all makes sense. If you have questions, please feel free to ask or reach out to me.
All right, any questions? Okay, we will move on to the action portion of the meeting. First up is purchase of new stationary kettle pot. Do I have a motion first?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the purchase of a new stationary kettle pot from the Buhler Fixture Company in the amount of $33,730.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Dr. Nielsen, would you like to discuss this for us?
I will. We received 2 bids for the kettle pots at the high school because one of our kettle pots has broken. It will not stay lit and the parts currently are obsolete. So we utilize the kettle pots because that was my question is, what do we make in the kettle pots? We utilize them to make soups, tetrazzini's, Alfredo, and so much more. So both of the bids that we received had high quality products, so we have chosen to go with the quote that cost the least. We would recommend moving forward with the Boulder Fixture Company to replace the kettle pot at the cost of $33,730.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I did Google what is the kettle pot. I'm
It's a
fessing
big
up.
pot.
I did not know what that was.
All right, can we have your votes, please? All right, motion passes. Next up, approval of contract with Sarah Roos, orientation and mobility independent contractor for the 2022-23 school year. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the contract with Sarah Roos, orientation and mobility independent contractor for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll give it to Eric. Second by Eric. Mrs. Hoekstra, can you?
So this is just our basic contract that we have every year. This year it's a little different because it's with an independent contractor, Sarah Roos. It's still the same orientation and mobility person that we used last year. It's just that last year she worked for NCECVBI, which is the Nebraska Center for Education of Children who are blind or visually impaired out of Nebraska City. She has recently taken a job as an instructor at UNL and then got her independent contractor license. So with that, it's also a little bit of a savings because, you know, instead of paying an agency their hourly fee, an independent contractor is a little bit cheaper per hour. So we still get to keep Sarah, who we really enjoy, and she does a great job. And then also it'll be a little bit of a savings, so.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Can I have your votes, please? Motion passes. Next up, rescind policy 4130.1 extra duty assignments. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 rescind policy 4130.1 extra duty assignments.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Mr. Alexander.
So basically, in policy 4130.1, which references extra duty assignments, there's a little bit of wording in there that gives me some heartburn. It's not huge, but language in the previous policy, 4130.1, references that extra duty assignments are at will. And that's what we would all prefer, is that we can have people that want to do extra duty assignments so we don't have to assign them. But we need to make sure that if needed, we have the ability to assign extra duty assignments and we don't conflict with any ability to do so. Therefore, we're recommending rescinding 4130.1 and making sure there is no conflictual language that creates a misunderstanding between at-will and assigned or appointed extra duty assignments. So we'll be rewriting that policy to create clarity in the coming weeks and bring it to you so it matches up with the actual policy 4130 more accurately.
Okay. Any questions?
Can you give me an example
Uh,
of how this might be used?
Well, for example, let's just say that we reached out, let's say our cheerleading sponsor decided didn't want to be cheerleading sponsor anymore, or left, whatever the case may be, and we reached out, tried to find one, we couldn't find one, we tried to talk to everybody and on staff and see if anybody would be interested in it, and nobody was interested in it. So at that point, in order to have cheerleading, we have to appoint a staff member or appoint somebody to the position to be the cheerleading sponsor. So that would be an example of one that we would have to appoint. Could happen with any activity. Could happen with journalism. Could happen with football, basketball, volleyball, any one of them.
I guess I'd have a little bit of concern about, we're reading how difficult it is to retain teachers, and then to add this to it. I mean, I don't know, I guess I would have some concerns there, you know.
We hope we never have to get there. It's a concerning factor for all of us in terms of the fact that we always like to be able to find people that are willing to sponsor those activities. And that would always be our preference. But if not, then we have to look at the next most qualified individual or an individual with some experience and say, we're going to have to appoint you as the whatever it might be sponsor.
Will this be for activities are already taking place, or will the district have the ability to create a position?
I guess I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Well, for example, let's say that some parents come forward and they would like 2 dance teams.
I see.
So we then form a second dance team, so then we'd need to find somebody to sponsor that, or extra basketball team, or an extra,
Yeah.
well, you have to be, that is not, it's not a class, these are the extra things,
Right,
aren't they?
yeah.
Like a whole bunch of students show up for speech, so we need another speech person, or we add debate. Some parents would come forward, or students would come forward and say, we'd like to have a debate team. So then there's no teacher that wants to do it.
Primarily if I think one of the conditional items with that request, if it did come to us, would be that if we can find someone doing it without having to appoint them, and if it made sense to add that, which would be your decision as a board, we would bring that to you. There are obvious things that we've done in the past that, for instance, girls wrestling, that was already taking place and we had a coach for it, so it just made sense to add that sport or that activity. But if it were a request that was coming with a lot of community influence, then we would bring that to you as a board to make that decision on. And then you also have to take into consideration, if you're going to add that activity, you have to have someone to sponsor it. And that would mean, if we didn't have anyone, that would mean appointing someone. So that would be something we'd have to take into consideration at that point, if you decided to add it.
So if we vote to rescind the policy, starting tomorrow, you can appoint people?
Well, it's already in the policy 4130.1 addresses the compensation as well as that it's considered at will. And so we're saying that those two policies really conflict with each other. And so basically 4130 already says that these can be assigned. 4130.1 talks about the actual compensation that goes along with them, and that it has the term at will in there, and so they conflict with each other, which is why we are making the recommendation that we rescind this policy and make those two, clarify 4130.1 so they match accurately with one another. As of now, we don't have any positions where we would have to appoint anybody, they're all filled. So, which has been the case for a long time.
I mean, I understand currently you can assign teachers to teach whatever you so choose, but the extra duties have been their choice. Is that correct?
That's been the case, yeah.
Okay.
In my term here, and I guess I can't speak to before that, but we have not had to assign anybody an activity sponsorship. Everybody's been willing to help out when necessary, so. And that's to be said about the community as well, because we have a host of community coaches who, when we haven't been able to find a sponsor or a coach or an activity sponsor on staff, we've had members of the community step up to help out and provide that necessity when there was no one else available. So that's a huge credit to the community in terms of being willing to help us in those situations. Which that would be the way we would prefer to go if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. All right, next up, Administrator's Report, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, you've heard me mention that LB 644 joint public hearing that will be held Monday, September 26th at, I believe it's 6:30 at the courthouse. That will be coming in everybody's mailbox shortly. I will be presenting that joint public hearing, so you're all welcome to attend, but you're not required to be there. So it's your choice if you choose to attend. I cordially invite you, but I understand if you have other commitments. I just want to take a moment and highlight some grant announcements, and we gave a little hint to this at the committee of the whole meeting, but I think it's important to take a moment and just talk about how much money the district has been able to access, outside money the district has been able to access in the past 4, 5, or 6 months, basically since April when we were able to bring a staff member on board to help us with this. So the first one is the Project Fit America grant, which will provide curriculum and playground equipment for our new PK5 building, and our elementary PE teachers and students will benefit from that. So it comes with curriculum for the teachers, and it comes with equipment for the students, and it will be, we will be notified in for sure. Basically what happens is Blue Cross Blue Shield is still, is the financial backing behind that, so they have to come forth and say that they will provide that for X number of schools that receive the award, but Beatrice has been chosen to receive that, assuming the funding comes forward, which is about $18,000 to $20,000 grant. The National Center for Families Literacy grant, we talked about this a little bit in the past couple meetings. That's a $70,000 grant for over 2 years that helps us improve literacy or expand our literacy offerings. We're really going to focus in on using it for our English language learner program that we've had a huge, well, I shouldn't say huge, but a big increase in students in the past in the past year, and more coming this year. Project Lead the Way is a grant where 2 applicants for training, 2 teachers will be paid for. They'll receive training. We qualified for the grant to do that, and so that's a $1,000 grant. Then our local Lions Club, we applied for $1,000 for a Jupiter portable magnifier for one of our students who is legally blind. They sent it on to the national level, so and we received an additional $2,000 for that. So that was $2,000. And then most recently, we wrote the Thomas Foundation grant asking for $40,000 to help replace our school vehicles that were damaged in the hailstorm, and we received that. And then lastly, the after-school grant, which was with a $169,000 grant we announced in July. So total grant success since last April is just shy of $300,000 that the school district has been able to bring in, because we've had someone on staff to track that, and I want to thank Lori Steerwalt for her efforts in writing and maintaining those, working with all the necessary entities to make sure those grants are actively pursued. We have another $18 million in grants that are out right now, but it's just a timing thing. We have to wait until we hear if we receive anything. So those are important things to know. So thank you to everyone who's helped Lori with content to supply those grants, and thank you to Lori for staying on top of them and managing them. KSU tab, we will have about 40 college students, which is also part of this process as well. They will be in town on Friday, this Friday, the 16th, previewing the 4 elementary sites and the Dempster's building to start the process of generating ideas, creating schematics and plans for upgrades or new improvements to those sites, which are labeled as brownfields once they're vacated. And because they have asbestos and they have lead paint in them, they're also labeled as brownfields. So they will help in the process of coming up with designs for what those places can be in our community once they're vacated. And that will also lead us down the road of being able to apply for grants to help eradicate the asbestos and the lead paint in those buildings. They'll be here again on Friday. We have meetings scheduled with them predominantly most of the day, and then they'll be back in October to give us, or they'll provide an update in October, and in November we'll have a community presentation for the entire community to come out and see what they come up with as architect students for drawings for those places. Finally, the groundbreaking ceremony. We have set that, nailed it down finally for Friday, September 30th at 10 a.m. at the new site. We will be sending out media invitations, and we pretty much have had positive response back from all of our partners that helped us get to this point in the new elementary site. And so we will be at 10 a.m. meeting out on the west side of that new site, and all those details will be coming out with an itinerary in the next week. So we want to make sure that that's on everybody's calendar. And that is all I have, unless there's questions.
All right. Notification of next meeting. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be October 10th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Administration Building. The Committee of the Whole meeting will be September 29th at 6 p.m. here in the Administration Building. An agenda for the meeting, which shall be kept continually current, is readily available for public inspection at the Superintendent's office during normal business hours. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And your votes, please. We are adjourned. Thank you.